Hey everyone, so today what you're going to see me do is 8 sets out of 12 sets of dynamic effort box squats. So you're only seeing 8 sets today because I forgot to record the first 4 sets. Basically just because I didn't care enough at the start to record them, but then I thought it would be a good video to look at as a good example of dynamic effort training and back and forth, yada yada yada, whatever. You'll see 8 sets today. So the variation of dynamic effort squats that I'm doing today is giant cambered bar box squats versus chains. So I'm using about 50% of my 1 rep max on the giant cambered bar versus 3 chains each side. And the chains add about 50 pounds at the top of the lift. And then what I'm doing for weight is I have 230 pounds on the bar. Now, what I'm going to do as a set and rep scheme is I'm doing 12 sets of 2 reps every minute on the minute. So at the start of every minute, I'm doing a set. I'm getting a little set up and a little prepared to do the next set a little bit before the minute goes. So I'm actually kind of squatting when the minute starts, or at least close to when the minute starts. And like I said, I'm doing 12 sets of 2 reps. So for people who might not know what dynamic effort training is using sub-maximal weights where you're trying to move them as quickly as possible. So like I said, I have 50% of my 1 rep max on the bar and then added accommodating resistance through the use of chains. And now why I'm doing this to promote rate of force development and develop power through the recruitment of fast twitch muscle fibers. Our fast twitch muscle fibers are the ones that a lot of people, when it comes to sport development or strength development, are actually interested in developing because they're the ones that allow us to produce the most force. And now there's 3 ways that we can really get into the use of fast twitch muscle fibers. And that's through maximal loading, through the maximal effort method, or at least very heavy loading, basically anything 80% plus. We can move very quickly, as you see me doing here, or at least with the intent to move very quickly. So dynamic effort training not only is just lifting sub-maximal weights fast, but it's also any other speed and power development exercises. So that means the Olympic lifts, that's box jumps, that's sprinting, that's depth drops, and other plyometric movements, etc. These also can you recruit and develop fast twitch muscle fibers. And then the last way to develop them is through the repetition effort method, which is basically when you choose a lift and you work it very close to failure, or you at least experience a lot of fatigue. So as your body experiences more and more fatigue, it starts to use higher threshold motor units, which are those fast twitch muscle fibers that we were just talking about, those ones that can develop a little bit more force and a little bit more disposed to strength and power production. Now, while doing these sets and reps, I actually have a Tendo unit on the bar also. So if you can kind of see it on the right side, it's kind of by my right foot, right underneath the squat rack. And then it's got a pulley that actually goes up and Velcros around the bar. And then it's actually telling me how fast I move the barbell. Now, I am just recording my speed based out of curiosity to see how fast that I can actually move the bar each rep, and to see how that speed actually changes over the course of my sets, to see how much it drops off or see if it drops off at all. Now, one of the things that we'll do when we're actually training our field athletes is you will use the Tendo unit to kind of denote a speed cap. So say 0.8 is a pretty common speed cap. That means that you can add weight on the bar, but like you can't drop below 0.8 meters per second. Sometimes we'll do 0.9, 0.8, 0.7, and maybe that'll be a speed, like a progression over the course of a couple weeks. So you can add a little bit more weight from week to week, but you can't drop below the designated speed. What that does is, for a lot of our kids and intermediate athletes, a lot of them don't actually have percentages or 1 rep max to actually take off of and use for dynamic effort training. So we can use that speed cap to actually help us gauge what the amount of effort that they're putting in, or what weight that they should actually be at for their dynamic effort training. What this also helps us do for our field athletes is ensure that the bar is moving fast enough in order to actually develop that speed, strength, explosive strength, and rate of force development. We know that when it comes to field athletics, speed is the name of the game. So not only do we want to be strong and have a lot of muscle, but we need to be able to produce force very quickly. Now, strength is going to provide us a foundation in order to build power and speed off of. So we don't want to negate like heavy strength training or think that that's not important. However, things that are going to correlate a little bit more directly into sport performance is this type of dynamic effort training. So how fast you can actually move the bar. Now, when it comes to powerlifting, there's some people in the powerlifting community who are a little bit more squat, bench, and deadlift focused, and the only thing that you can do that works to get you stronger is just the barbell lifts. And a lot of those people will kind of poo-poo on dynamic effort training, saying that it's not specific enough. However, one thing that I want to point out with the Tendo unit and when it comes to the speed of squatting, when I do my meet prep and I'm getting a little bit more specific, I will also track the speed of my regular barbell lifts. And one of the things that I noticed is that like 70 to 75% range kind of correlates with some of the similar speeds that I was getting during these lifts. So that means my muscles are contracting at a similar speed, which does correlate very well towards improving that specific type of performance. So when it comes to contraction speed, it's very similar to getting a bunch of lifts with the barbell at 70 to 75%. But I have 50% on the bar plus the accommodating resistance, which is, even though I'm getting similar contraction speeds, I'm doing it with a lot less joint wear and tear, which in the long run hopefully will be able to extend my career, because developing strength actually takes a long time and I want to be in this game for the long run. The other thing with dynamic effort training is you can't kind of just sit around and take all day to do it. You have to push with it. You have to actually try your hardest with it. You need to actually try to put as much force into the bar every rep as you can. If you kind of, half-ass this stuff, that's another way that this doesn't translate that well into heavier lifts. So the reason why I'm going on a certain rest clock, I'm not just resting however long I want to, is to increase the fatigue so that I actually have to push harder and try harder. As the fatigue increases, that means the contraction speed slows a little bit, but that will also make it similar to the contraction speed of my heavier lifts. So I'm kind of replicating an environment of a heavier lift with less weight on the bar, which leads to less joint wear and tear. And as you can kind of hear me yelling and grunting through the background noise there, I'm not taking it easy on the dynamic effort lifts. This is where a lot of volume and gains actually come from for my powerlifting. So don't sleep on it, do it right, and try really hard.